In honor of Rage of Ra, I wanted to look at some of Marik's most broken Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Now this is a series that we've done multiple times, and here's how it works. We look at all the cards that a character used in the anime. In this case, it's going to be Marik, primarily Yami Marik, and then we look at how good those cards were in the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG. Now in some of these cases, the cards that were used in the anime actually changed when they were added into the TCG. Sometimes this is a good thing, other times it's not so good, but in today's video we are specifically looking at the TCG versions of cards that Marik played in the anime. First up, of course, Marik played many of the broken old school spell cards, things like Pot of Greed and Premature Burial and Monster Reborn. I know that many of the older anime characters played those cards, so I won't spend too much time on them. Moving on to more Marik specific cards, we have Machine Duplication, a very powerful spell card, and while Marik was not really using this card in any broken means, if you've ever played against this card in the regular TCG, you know this card is always doing something pretty crazy. Machine Duplication is a normal spell card that says, target one machine monster you control with 500 or less attack, special summon up to 2 monsters from your deck with the same name as that face-up monster. This card has been featured in tons of broken combos. Way back in the day, people were using it to special summon 3 copies of Card Trooper and then mill 9 cards from their deck. That was really insane back in the day. The card has also seen success in decks like Cyber Dragons, which is still seeing play right now, and decks like Spirals back when they had Quick Fix, and Drone at 3 copies per deck. Overall, Machine Duplication is truly one of the craziest cards that Konami has ever released, and ever since that card has been in the game, Konami has had to really analyze every single machine monster with 500 or less attack points, because whenever they print a new machine monster that meets those requirements, they can always know that people will have the option of special summoning 2 from the deck. Machine Duplication has honestly been extremely overpowered in many different formats and decks, and it is truly one of the best pieces of machine support ever released. While Lava Golem in recent years has mostly been overshadowed by other cards like kaijus or another card we're going to mention in today's video, for a long time it was one of the best pieces of removal, going second against cards that couldn't be targeted or destroyed. The beauty of Lava Golem is that by tributing your opponent's monsters, you get around many protection effects, and that is very valuable in certain matchups. Lava Golem in Duel Links is also a very powerful card, or at least it was in the past, and many people have complained about it in that format. I believe its effect damage actually recently got nerfed. In the TCG though, we do not see this card very often anymore, but don't get me wrong, for years this card was extremely good, going second in a variety of matchups. Yes, it has been overshadowed by many more recently released cards, but for a while it was a very good side deck option. Does anyone remember when Jiraigeto was like $20+ a copy? Probably not, but it was. This card was featured as a 3 of in Cosmo deck lists way back in the day, and even though it never really saw play outside of that one very specific deck in that one very specific format, it was a very good card in that strategy and did top several events. Jiraigeto is a level 4 Dark Fiend monster that says, during either player's battle step, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, gain 1000 life points. You can only use this effect of Jiraigeto once per turn. Quick effect, you can tribute this card, then target one face-up monster you control. It gains 1000 attack until the end of this turn. Now this thing put a lot of stats on the board. You get the initial 1700 plus 1000 more, and sometimes that 1000 more was all you really needed to make a farm girl actually do battle damage and get a search effect. While this card was not really featured in future versions of Cosmos, it was very important in the earlier versions of the deck when they only had one set of support, and for that reason I wanted to mention it in today's video. Of course, we can't make a Marik video without mentioning Makira the Destructor, a very powerful card that just recently went to 3 copies in the regular TCG format, but of course with a new, much worse effect than the original version. The original Makira was one of the most unbalanced cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! It truly did break the game, even if it was only legal for a few short months. Makira the Destructor with the original effect said, during the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can activate trap cards from your hand. This breaks a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Things like Jar of Greed or Reckless Greed or Good Goblin Housekeeping. There are so many trap cards obviously designed with the drawback that you have to set them before using them. With Makira, Makira though, all of that goes out the window, especially with the earlier version of the effect. Nowadays though, with the newer effect that has 3 big drawbacks that the original effect didn't have, yeah, this card is pretty much unplayably bad. If anything though, having to make 3 big changes to the effect to actually bring it back into the game only goes to show just how broken the original Makira truly was. Left Arm Offering has one of the most powerful effects I've ever seen on a Yu-Gi-Oh card, paired with a pretty big downside. So Left Arm Offering is a normal spell card that really does ask a lot of the player, but gives you a pretty big reward. This thing says if you have 2 or more other cards in your hand, banish your entire hand to add 1 spell card from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot set spell and traps during the turn you activate this card. 2 big downsides: you have to banish your entire hand while you already have 2 other cards, and also you can't set any spell or trap cards during the turn that you use this effect, which means if you have any spells or traps, you either have to activate them immediately or they're getting banished with the Left Arm Offering. This card saw the most amount of play in 60 card decks when That Grass Looks Greener was limited, because you wanted to play extra copies of that very powerful game-winning spell. With Left Arm Offering, you were basically playing 4 copies of Grass, which did actually help the consistency quite a lot. And even if you drew Grass and Left Arm Offering in the same hand, you could still use the Left Arm Offering for other powerful spell cards. For example, pretty much all of those decks played Soul Charge, another powerful one of in a 60 card deck, so Left Arm Offering had a lot of versatility, and there were other spell cards as well, but Grass and Soul Charge were the 2 most common searches. You could use it for searching side deck cards or other consistency cards like Charge of the Light Brigade, but overall the important part here is that Left Arm Offering was a very crucial searching card in a 60 card strategy. You might not think of Holding Legs as a very overpowered card, but it actually did see tournament success in multiple formats and multiple different decks. Holding Legs was a card that people started out playing in like Performapel decks and then eventually moved on with Metal Foe decks and Zodiac Metal Foe decks, and yeah, it was a good way in different pendulum strategies to remove a lot of back row. This is a level 4 Dark Fiend monster with 800 attack and defense. It says if this card is summoned, return all set spell and trap cards on the field to the hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 set spell or trap card your opponent controls. That set card cannot be activated until the end of your opponent's next turn. The primary use for this card was to force out back row before your big pendulum summon, and then it had some added value after that. So you would normal summon this card and your opponent would be forced to like Solemn Strike it, otherwise they would lose all of their back row back to their hand. Afterwards, you could use the card for a Synchro Summon or Exceed Summon or whatever, and then while in the graveyard you got 1 more extra effect out of the card. That is a lot on 1 monster card, and it's probably why it saw so much play. Nowadays we have plenty of other ways to get rid of back row. Obviously we eventually got Hey Trunade, which is basically just this card but on a spell card effect, but for a while it was a very good tech option for many pendulum players. I also have to mention the Winged Dragon of Ra. Now I know this card is not very competitively viable, but it is one of Marik's most iconic monsters. That being said, the Sphere Mode version of the Winged Dragon of Ra actually has seen a lot of play. No, not really in Ra decks. In fact, I wouldn't really recommend that because your opponent will just use it for a Link Summon before you ever get it back to your own side of the field, but it is a very good going second removal option, very similar to Lava Golem. In this case though, you're not giving your opponent a huge monster while only tributing 2 monsters, you're giving them a very small monster while tributing 3 monsters, which is extremely effective in a variety of matchups. In many cases where people were making boards that were way too difficult to break, especially before Dark Ruler No More was released into the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, many players tried using Sphere Mode to out those fields, and to a lot of success. This remains one of the best ways to out some of the craziest boards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So even if the original version of the Winged Dragon of Ra has not seen a lot of success, this version has, and that is pretty cool. While many modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Players probably don't even know what Magical Stone Excavation is, this card was a powerhouse back in the day. It's pretty simple. It's a normal spell card that lets you discard 2 cards to target 1 spell in your graveyard and add it to your hand. In many ways, this card was similar to Left Arm Offering. You were losing a lot of card advantage to add 1 spell card to your hand. hand. Where this card really did see a lot of play though was in decks with Destiny Hero Diamond Dude. Destiny Hero Diamond Dude is a very unique monster that lets you skip the cost of a spell card while still getting the effect. The deck that played this combo was known as Diamond Dude Turbo, and Magical Stone Excavation was one of the more powerful cards in that strategy. Nowadays the deck is way too inconsistent and slow to really make a competitive impact, but back in the day that was a deck that wrecked many bigger tournaments. And that pretty much concludes today's video. I think that is the most amount of truly broken cards that we've ever covered in this series. Marik truly had some of the craziest cards when they were translated into the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.